Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for what is arguably one of the most critical topics in software today: how you'll test AI apps for trust and scale. An AI app is not your classical predictable software. It learns from data and it makes mistakes in unexpected ways. So it's safe to say the old QA playbook is broken. In a way, we're here to discuss up-to-date approaches to testing new software types. To break down this complex challenge, I have two experts with me today. First, we have Michael Tomara, QA lead at TestFort, with over a decade of hands-on experience. Michael specializes in implementing stable data-driven QA practices. Michael, welcome. And joining us today, focusing on the high-level strategy and next-generation solutions, is Twinkle Joshi, a senior software engineer and a leading expert in autonomous testing and quality engineering. Twinkle, great to have you with us today. I'm Bruce Mason, Delivery Director at TestFort, and will be your moderator for today. Okay, so without further ado, let's kick off with our first topic matter. Okay, perhaps we should start with an overview of what we're going to cover in the webinar so that our audience can understand what to expect. Twinkle, maybe you can talk about this.
First of all, thank you, Bruce, for introducing me, and hello, everyone. So, before we start on what we are going to cover, let's first understand why we need to test AI application. So, as we all know, AI is everywhere right now. It has changed the way we build and use the technology. It is present in the voice assistants, it is also present in the medical diagnostics, and in the autonomous vehicles. And so, with that great power comes the huge responsibility. And this is where we need to ensure that AI works fairly, ethically, and accurately. So, here is the challenge now. As you described, the traditional software, it is predictable. You write the code, you define the rules, and the system follows. Either it works or it doesn't work. But AI, on other hand, learns from the data. It makes the predictions based on patterns and not rules. So the two things can happen. Either it will surprise us or it will fail in a way we won't expect. And this is why we need to test AI applications to ensure that it works ethically, fairly, and accurately. And at the same time, the traditional QA methods, as we see, those doesn't work in this case because AI doesn't give the same output twice. And so it may work in one scenario and fail abruptly in the other due to just minor change in the data or unseen test cases. So in this way, because of this, we need to test AI application and ensure we understand its challenges and what strategy we need to input in order to test the application. So this is what we will cover today.
Brilliant. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Just as I say, an additional thought. Do we believe that AI testing should be part of a QA team's role or a completely separate discipline?
So
What are your
AI
thoughts on
testing should be part of the QA, in my opinion,
that? Okay.
because if you see, there are now strict guidelines. So AI, responsible AI, is not just a made up term. There are EU AI Act, which has been implemented, which has the strict guidelines on how you need to have a responsible AI. And in order to ensure that AI works in certain principles, we need to have AI testing implemented as a part of QA processes.
Okay. Understand that, but it might fit under an umbrella within an overall business strategy for a rollout, obviously, of AI within that corresponding organization. So it can work within certain parameters, but at the same time, yes, I agree with you completely with regards to it having to obviously meet the obviously industry standards, yeah, as well. Yeah. Okay. All
Yes,
right.
so in my opinion, these guidelines should, of course, be implemented while developing, while processing, and training the model. But it
Mhm.
also needs to be adapted in terms of testing. So we know what we are testing against.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that as an overview. Okay, excuse me, apologies. Let's move on then. So, with regards to challenges, So, let's talk about some of the challenges that are likely to be faced with regards to utilizing AI in applications. Michael, maybe you could give me your thoughts on this.
Well, one of the first challenges that come to mind is, I'll put it in a general way, is the dynamic nature of AI. As Twinkle said, it tends to work not given the same answers in the same situations. It evolves while communicating with users, learning from the data it is being fed. So it is dynamic, it works dynamically, and results are dynamic. It is not like the traditional expected results that QAs work with used to work with. So yeah, QA industry needs to, in this case, to step up and learn to mm, work with AI products and AI components of usual products, because we are facing more and more products that previously we already have been testing, but now they are coming with AI features, and it is a necessity to learn how to test them properly. So yeah, it is a challenge of dynamic with usual, maybe if we can call it static products, and uh, therefore QA needs some add some dynamics in its testing strategy, and uh, dynamic and dynamics to test cases and expected results.
Okay, all right, thank you. Twinkle, is there anything else that you'd like to add with regards to that particular question?
So the challenges that I see with AI testing is we have unrealistic expectations, and AI has, as Michael described, non-determinism nature. So as I said earlier, and as Michael said, same input won't produce same output twice. And that nature of AI is probably the hard thing to test. Also, we have unrealistic goals. So, like with traditional software testing, we have specific requirements. Like when you click on the button, it does so and so thing. But with AI, the goals are kind of vague. So, for example, make the recommendation system better. Now, in here, without the metrics, how would a tester know what the correctness even means? So, unrealistic expectation and non determinism is the main challenge I see while testing the AI applications. There is also chances, and we have seen that in the past with the data imbalance and biases. So, our AI model is only as good as the quality of the data we feed into it.
Mhm.
If data has imbalances, like it has missing values, inconsistency, or if it is not balanced, so in that case the biases may be introduced, and it may not make the accurate predictions. And it not only affects just in a technical way, but it also affects the human lives sometimes. So that's another challenge that I see here. Also, there is a challenge in terms of explaining what how the AI is making decision. Like there's no way it acts like a black box, and we don't know how what things are considered when it makes certain decisions. And of course, there are no standard guidelines when testing the AI application like we have for the traditional software. And for AI, it consumes a lot of energy, and in this case, we need the specialized tool. We should have efficient energy resources and the skilled engineers to work and test on the AI application. So these are some of the main challenges that I also see when testing the AI.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. One thing that springs to mind for myself is if the AI is constantly kind of, for want of a better phrase, changing its mind because of its behavior changes, how do you actually physically measure success? Because what was a previous goal may not be the same based on the AI's approach with regards to that. Any thoughts
So
on that?
So, yeah, in my opinion, we of course cannot check for the expected outcomes, but we can check the probability of it. And as I mentioned, there are multiple factors that goes into it. Accuracy
Okay.
is one of that, and your AI may be accurate enough, but then there are other factors too. So we need to ensure that we check for its reliability, accuracy, scalability, performance. It makes fair decisions. We are transparent enough to understand how it is making the decision. Our users can also should be able to understand that how AI is making those decisions. We make it secure enough. We are compliant with the EU AI Act guidelines. So if we test our AI application across all these principles, I
Mhm.
think that will give us some confidence into uh, how AI is working properly in an ethical way. Now, to
Okay.
answer your question, how can we be sure? We cannot be 100% sure. I'll be honest with you, we cannot because of its probabilistic nature. But if we check for all these principles, I
Mhm.
think we can have this confidence that it's okay, that AI will work fine.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much for that. One particular point I forgot to mention at the start, I do apologize, everybody, is for all of our viewers and listeners out there that are listening to this webinar. In the event that you've actually got any questions as you go through, please put them down in the corresponding chat, and we will cover off questions at the end of the webinar. So thank you very much for that. Okay, let's proceed further. Okay. Next question. So we've talked about some of the challenges that we've got. Let's try and understand how to create a testing strategy for testing AI applications. Twinkle, let's come back to you on this one.
Okay,
Where
sure.
do we start on this particular area of topic?
Sure. So, as I just mentioned about those principles, let's go through them a little bit in details first. So, first thing is we need to go through how accurate and reliable our AI application is. So, accuracy is the ability of AI to measure the correctness of their output. Reliability is to ensure that AI is producing correct outputs in the certain scenarios, in various scenarios, I mean. Any error, if that occurs, it can cost business a lot, and also it affects the user's trust in it. So first of all, check for accuracy and reliability. Second thing is check for the scalability and performance of the AI application. So test with the real scenarios, real world scenarios on how it will behave with the large data. Make sure the performance and the scalability is not affected. If it degrades, it should degrade gracefully. The third thing is ensure the transparency. You and your users should know how is AI making the decision. They should be you should be able to explain yourself and your user that what went into it, what kind of data went into it, how AI is making the decision, and why it is making those choices. The fourth thing is check for fairness and biases. Like ensure that AI is fair and is not biased towards anything. There's no discrimination. And then check for the human in loop. Like not check for, but have a human in loop. Have AI experts in there. So how do we know that AI made a correct decision? We won't know that until someone flags it and says that yeah, it is correct and it is not correct. So have human in loop all the time. Get the feedbacks all the way, do it continuously, not at the end. Then check for the security and privacy. Now AI deals with the sensitive data, we know that. Ensure there are no data leaks. It respects the user privacy. Ensure that it can work against any poison data. Like there are users out there who would prompt in a way that AI get trained in a wrong way, and it affects the data integrity. And make sure that your data is not poisoned in a way. And the last one is be compliant. Check against the guidelines that are out there. So if we look at these principles, now we can make our strategy. So first stage that goes into it is data validation. So first of all, check for the data quality. Now, our AI model will be only as good as the data we feed in, right? It's the heart of our AI model. So check for any misinformation, any missing data. If it is biased, make sure you are resampling it to understand that to make sure that data is trained. You provide the correct data for the training purposes. And and for the data integration part, we gather data from various sources, right? And in order to ensure that our data is correct, we need to make sure that we combine it accurately, transform it, and also make it consistent while we are training our model. The second part of the strategy would be model validation. So once we know our data is validated, it is integrated properly, we need to ensure our model works fine. First, check for biases and fairness again. And here we can use tools like Google's What If tool or IBM's AI Fairness 360-degree tool to check for the outcomes. Second is check for adversarial attacks, like do adversarial testing. What I mean by that is try to feed your model with malicious data or the noisy input to ensure that it handles that correctly and and the model is robust. The third point is the demographic parity. So here we need to ensure that when model consider different types of demographics, it has considered different categories of people, and it is answering based on general rule and not just on just one kind of people out there. Once we are done with that, we need to now check for the functional part. And in this case, there are two things. First, we can do the unit testing like we do for the traditional software. In traditional software, when we do unit testing, we test for methods and functions. In this case, we still do the same thing, but we check for the methods that involves data processing, model training, model outcomes, and any utility classes or the functions that we are using. And once we do that, again, use the explainable AI tools in order to understand that model made the correct decisions or not. Once that's done, we can do the non-functional testing against security, performance load. And if all of that works, the final stage is end user testing. In the end user testing, we can have two stages. First one is domain expert testing. In this case, we'll include our domain experts to suggest whether there are any issues or not, and they will test the AI outputs against the business requirements and ensure that AI is following the goals, the objective of the business. And once everything aligns, we do final user acceptance testing where our model is accessible and usable or not, and it actually solves the user problem. So these are some of the steps that I would include in testing AI as a part of my strategy.
That was a pretty comprehensive update. Thank you very much for that, Twinkle. I'll offer the floor across to you, Michael. Have you got anything that you would like to add to Twinkle's summary there with regards to the approach?
From my side, I would just add a couple of thoughts about the stage of requirements building, or rather transforming the business requirements into expected results for QA, and this needs to be done by QA. So in case of an AI, as we already said, as we already mentioned when speaking about expectations, it is necessary to correctly interpret business expectations from this tool to formulate the user expectations. So it's not like we can create requirements like and question A requires an answer B, etc., etc. We should rather work with percentage of percentages of issues like hallucinations. Do they occur or not? They should not occur. Facts from the data that has been fed to AI. Can it find them when asked directly, when asked using a correct prompt. It should be able to find them. Then what if prompts are incorrect? What if prompts are illogical? Does AI correctly handle it and either note that this is an illogical prompt or suggest different variants, different kinds of answers depending on what user might have meant, etc. So this part might be the most one of the most important things when just starting to building the expected results and test scenarios based on them.
Okay. One quick additional question from myself. If your data pool is pulling in data from a third-party repository to feed, say, your AI model, in the event that you notice that the AI model appears to have bias coming from a specific, as I say, input, how would you go about dealing with that?
So in that case, what QA or if developers find it, what we can do is we can resample or
Mhm.
generate synthetic data.
Okay.
So if our data is biased towards just one kind of, let's say, race or ethnicity,
Mhm.
we can here generate synthetic data. By synthetic data, what I mean is we generate a data which is not real,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it is equal to what is already out there.
Okay.
And so that way we can avoid biases so that model doesn't learn biases. And to
Okay.
give you an example, previously, and this is the real example that happened. So few years back, a hiring system just preferred male over female because the data that was fed into it had male data more than the women data, and that because of that biases, although algorithm doesn't have that, but because of that data biases, it preferred selecting male over female. So in that kind of case, what we can do is we can either generate the synthetic data to make it
Mhm.
equal, or we can do resampling in order to make sure that we are not having any biases.
Okay. All right. Good example, and thank you for that input. Okay. Right now, let me give you a quick announcement from, I'd say, our organization. TestFort has prepared something valuable for everyone here today. We're offering a free QA audit session to all our webinar attendees. You don't need significant involvement, just a minimal time investment from your team. In return, you'll gain clarity about critical gaps, your current QA maturity, and an actionable roadmap with some fixes. Details will be in the follow-up email, and I guess you'll see a link in the chat too. Okay, let's get back to our discussion. Right, next topic matter for our participants. Testing tools. We've covered some of the key areas so far, but it's probably a good idea to talk about the testing tools that can be used. Let's come back to you on this one, Michael. What thoughts have you got on what tools should be used?
One of the most important tools are those that work with data because, as Twinkle said, data is at the core of AI tool. There are a few tools in the market that can be used for that, such as TensorFlow extended tool, which help with data validation, model training analysis. Other tools like PyTorch, for example, and more specialized tools for testing bias in data and fairness in models like FairML, TensorFlow model analysis. They help with model evaluation. So this is what our engineers have experience with. But there are many more tools in the market that can also be used for special purposes, and also what's the best that more and more tools are eventually coming into this market.
I understand that there's definitely going to be more tools that come through, adding more value for the people. Twinkle, any additional thoughts from yourself on this particular area?
Sure. Yeah, Michael covered most of the useful tool, but to add on to that, there is also, as I mentioned, Google's What If tool for the fairness testing. There is IBM's AI Fairness 360-degree tool that we can use for fairness and bias testing. Then there is SHAP and Line, which can be used for explainable AI. So these tools are basically useful when you want to explain why AI is making decisions. So I would definitely use those two tools as well. There is Tensor's model analysis tool that does the model evaluation. So I would, to Michael list, I would add those three as well.
Okay, thank you. Quick additional sub question on this one. Do you see a need for an AI testing framework within the industry that would add value for people utilizing such a framework? Who would like to answer that one?
So yeah, I can answer that. So I
Okay.
believe there is a strong need for AI testing framework, because right now, if you see, everything is vague out there. When we talk about these principles or the strategy or the tools, there are a lot of tools, and that we need extensive QA team in order to go through all of these tools, ensure everything is working fine. So I believe we need a proper AI testing tool so that we have standards. The way we have standards for traditional software testing, we should have something for AI testing as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you on that. Um, okay. Let's move on to our final particular topic. Best practices. Let's look at what constitutes best practices for testing AI applications. Twinkle, let's come back to you on this one for your thoughts on
Sure.
this topic here.
So, in my opinion, QA should be involved in AI testing from the initial stage. Understand the goals and problems, define what correctness means, and so that when you are gathering the data, you know what kind of data is needed, evaluate those data, and then create the test cases. This will ensure that we understand from the beginning what kind of data we are looking into and whether those data aligns with our goals or not. Once those steps are done, uh, retrain and retest your models, because what happens, the model that used to work in, let's say, 2022 won't work with 2025, because the relevance have changed, data has changed, there are a lot of things that have come into place. So retrain your model and retest your model. And the most important thing is keep on checking with the regulatory guidelines to avoid any penalties and make sure your AI is responsible enough. So yeah, these are some of the best practices that I would suggest we should do.
Okay, Michael, additional thoughts from yourself?
Well, I would just add maybe some best practices related to the um, dynamic nature of the AI. In some way, repeat what I've said earlier. So the QA team needs to get used to this dynamic nature to create respective scenarios that can be changed, can be updated, can be used for to cover a variety of possible answers, not just a fixed variance of answers. Same with results. Results should not be fixed. Results should be dynamic, and they should involve the appearance of correct metrics, like getting the correct facts that are actually in the knowledge base, getting correctly correcting users' prompts if they are asking about things that make no sense, for example, and not hallucinating, etc. So corner cases should be taken into account. There are they can be there can be a lot of them depending on what product is that. For example, mm, if a user who is experienced with in this domain asks some questions, the AI should not start with the basics if it has means to understand that the user has experience from their previous discussions or from questionnaire, for example. So
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. All right. Some additional small little questions. I know my thoughts on this particular one, but interested to hear the panel's thoughts. What do we think? Will AI one day fully test everything, or do we believe that there will always be a need for human intervention? So, who would like to kick off on that one? Michael, want to go first on that one? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
that's very interesting. Given the pace that AI is developing today, sometimes you might think that AI could replace human testers at least in testing itself. But still, as we discussed earlier, there is always a need of human in the loop to verify not only the correct behavior of the AI, I mean functionally correct, but also the compliance with the requirements, with standards, etc. It cannot be fully left without human control because otherwise, and there were many examples of that, AI could evolve into direction where it doesn't really respect compliance.
Okay. Twinkle, additional thoughts?
Yes. So I totally agree with Michael. Yeah, I don't think so. I also don't think so that AI can be completely used for testing. We still need tester for planning the strategy, making sure we have a good plan to carry out, determine the test scenarios. Although AI can help us with that, but what I have seen with my experience, at least right now, is it is not that precise. It would generate a general scenario for you. Maybe it would help a little bit in identifying the unseen edge cases, but it's the human creativity that requires us to explore the app, make sure the sorry, not make sure, but to determine how the app can break. And that's where we still need human to do that. In terms of automation testing, in my experience, I don't think so AI is there yet. It's a good companion, I would say. It is helpful, but it is not there yet. Maybe it will evolve in future, but not right now. It works good in some scenarios, but if you have complex application and complex business requirements, it fails abruptly. And so, in my opinion, we'll always need a human in loop just to ensure that AI is generating correct test cases, because it also hallucinates. So, yeah, in my opinion, I don't think so AI will take over. We still need human testers.
As an ex-PM, I love my statistics, 60-40, 80-20. And I think that's probably, say, where AI can get to, depending on industry-based standards. I would imagine a more regulatory-based industry, where it is quite static with regards to its principles. AI would understand the rules, and as such, you can get higher tolerances. But in other domains that are maybe slightly more chaotic with regards to how they actually physically work, AI is not going to understand the rules because they don't necessarily exist, because they change from day to day. So in those particular areas, yes, again, there's always going to be that need outside of the data pool and the bias for validation purposes, that a human understands and can look at what is actually physically needed there. Okay, an additional small little question. That's an interesting one. Yeah, how often should companies maybe revalidate their AI models in production? I think this is more at a corporate level, maybe rather than a testing-based perspective. I think where I was kind of go a little bit earlier in our conversation as part of this, but interested to hear your thoughts. Okay, Twinkle, let's start with you on that one.
Sure. So in my opinion, reevaluation, as I mentioned, should be done like every time we are training the data. If there is something new or evolving, any changes, any minor changes, we should keep on reevaluating that. If possible, even if there are no changes, try to reevaluate your model, because with the prompts and everything, there are chances model may drift a bit, and we need to ensure that it is relevant to the current scenario. So I don't have the exact metrics or percentage that I would say we need to do that, because again, it depends on company again.
Hmm.
But with traditional software testing, we would test every time the code changes. But in
Hmm.
this case, we need to test it as frequently as possible, because there are chances model may drift a bit later if it is not tested.
Yeah. Understand. Okay. I think from a testing-based perspective, that's logical. From a corporate-based perspective, it may be that it's reviewed every month, 3 months, 6 months, as part of, or even fiscal year. However, there are always exceptions to those types of rules, especially where regulatory changes occur within an industry, and as such, you may need to obviously do an ad hoc based review. That's again with my business-based background, some additional thoughts on that particular area. Okay, we've kind of come to the end, as I say, of our webinar content for today. So let's hand this over to our audience and see what additional questions that we've got actually coming through. We've got a question come through in kind of, actually, it's not a two-parter, it's an addendum to one. So I think, as I say, the second part is kind of more background for the original part. So let me read the background part from. Testers won't have access to data in the model, the prompts, or even temperature of the AI. It's black box, and we need to test it as such. So the question was, what has the panel seen in terms of real-world problems testing AI? For example, how to help a client understand the non-deterministic nature of AI. I think that is in relation to the background element that they had with regards to their question. So, what are thoughts, Twinkle?
So yes, first of all, the excess thing that needs to be resolved within an organization. If the testers are not aware of what data is going into the model, or if they have no way of knowing it, there's no way we can have a comprehensive testing done on that. So at the organizational level, that needs to be resolved. I don't see why uh, the team who are involved in developing have the access, and team who are testing doesn't. So, in my opinion, that needs to be resolved. In terms of explaining how that can be done, we have the good tools like Lime and Share. So, what happens with those two tools are, with Lime, it acts like your translator. So basically, if let's say your loan was rejected, right? So what Lime will give you is so your credit checks was a major impact, but the age did not have the major impact on this. And what SHAP can help you with is to break down each of these factors. Like, for example, 20% of the decision was related to your credit history. 15% of the decision or 15 points were deducted because you have other loans. So those kind of things, those are the factors that these tools can give you and explain why it made those decisions. So if we use those tools to determine those things, I think it will be easier for the tester and as well as the user to understand how model is making the decision.
Okay. As soon as we started talking, the person that wrote the question did a follow up. I immediately had the same thought in my mind as to why they would not actually have access to the data. And the scenario is the data pool is owned by one particular company, and the AI model is being developed by a third party. And as such, the third party can't have access to the raw data, either from a security based perspective or maybe even from a regulatory based perspective.
Okay, so that's a different scenario. I have not run into it, but my suggestion would be if you can get some details, maybe not exact data, but some details about the data, that would be a lot helpful, like the summary of what is going into it, what factors are we considering. I think that would also help in making sure that you are evaluating your model based on some criteria. um, I don't know how that can happen, but if they can provide you some guidelines or some documentation on what goes into it, I think that would be helpful.
If I can think about this from a development-based perspective, you would understand an XML schema or a JSON structure, where effectively you would understand what the data types are that are actually generating that, which I think is where Twinkle is going with regards to that. But you wouldn't have access to the physical content of the XML structure of the data that's being passed. That would give you the information with which to understand the structure of the data that's being used by the AI, which I am sure any third-party provider would have access to. However, what you can't do is counteract bias, but without actual physical and fairness, without access to the raw data, you can't train that model without understanding bias and fairness, because you can't see the physical data that's being passed.
Right.
Would you agree with that, Twinkle?
Yes, I would, but I will add one
Mhm,
more thing. So I'm
mhm,
just thinking right now what can be done in that case. So I agree that the company doesn't want to share any sensitive data because it's
yeah.
coming through them, name, age. I think those are sensitive things that they don't want to share. But
Mhm,
what they can share is the factors that leads to biases, like gender, ethnicity. You don't
mhm,
have to mention name or any sensitive information, but if you can gather that kind of data as well, this will be super helpful to you to avoid biases. The reason we
mhm,
need data is to ensure we are fair enough. And fairness usually is not related to name or
mhm,
name, in my opinion, of course, age matters. But
yeah.
if we can get those data and we do not relate it to a person, of course, we can understand what amount of data is going into the model
Mhm.
and what kind of data is like a majority. So that is
May
one thing I think we can ask the company to provide.
Maybe the third-party provider can request scripts be run against the main data pool, which effectively validates what is the makeup of the data based on male, female, age by brackets, and any other discriminatory, maybe race,
Yes,
as say from ethnicity, etc., so that then they could turn around and say the model would have bias in this particular area for this based on this. So they
exactly.
won't have access to the data, but they could provide the scripts and get the response of the statistics back. That would
Right,
then
right.
allow them to validate the bias. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I hope that answered your question with regards to that particular part. Let's see if we have any additional questions coming through. At the moment, we don't. Okay. Um, in that case, then, I would very much like to thank, as I say, our participants in our conversation today, Twinkle and Michael. Thank you very much for your time, and to our listeners watching, as I say, online. Again, thank you very much, as I say, for your attention today, and we hope this was an interesting topic for you. And we look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Okay. In that case, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Okay.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye.